Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be building an API in Django using the Django Rest Framework. And we're going to be deploying this API onto Heroku. And after deploying it, we're going to put it on RapidAPI Hub. Now, RapidAPI is a platform where you can get thousands of APIs for basically anything you need for your project. For example, let's say you need an API to take care of sending SMS in your project. You can just come to rapidapi.com. and let's say you search for SMS and you hit enter. So you are going to be able to see lots of API that offer that service. For example, you see Twilio, smsapi.com. So you can easily find any API you're looking for basically anything you need for your project. Rapid API is very easy to use, and if you're a developer that you want to put your API also on Rapid API, I'm going to show you how you can do that in this video. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into the video. So guys, right here I have my project created. So this is just a Django project that I created, and I named it Django Rapid API. And let me just quickly walk through what I've done to this point. So I just open up my command prompt, and then I migrated into the directory where I want to create my Django project. Then I created a Django project named Django Rapid API, and also created a Django app named API app. So that's what I've done to this point. So what I want to do now is to just create an API, a very simple API to just get a response using the Django Rest Framework. So since we're using the Django Rest Framework, we have to make sure that we have the Django Rest Framework installed. So let's come back to our command prompt. And what we want to do now is to say pip install Django Rest Framework. So this is going to install Django Rest Framework for us. And if you already have it installed, you are going to see something like requirement already satisfied. But if you don't have it installed, it should just go ahead and download the necessary files and install it. So for me, I do have it installed, and I should be getting a response of requirement already satisfied. So as you can see, that's what it says right here. And yeah, so since we know that we already have that installed, let's just go ahead and go back to our code. So yeah, that is installed. Close that up. So right here in our code, what we just want to do now is in our API app, we want to create a new file and name it C. So this file is going to be named serializer, and what this serializer file does is that it serializes our data basically. So let me first of all serial.py. So that is to go into the app. So now that we have that, we're going to come back to that later. So the first thing I want to do is that I want to just configure the major things that are required for or in Django project. So for us to be able to use the Django Rest Framework, we need to quickly work on some configurations. So right here in settings.py, we need to scroll down to where we see installed apps. So we can just quit this. Right here, we can just add the Rest Framework app. So that's the Django Rest Framework. We've added it as an app. And then what we can do now is to just add this app as an app. So we can say API app. So after this, we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom. And then right here, we're going to just add this block of code. So now that we have this pasted here, we can just easily save that now. And then this is just going to basically take care of the REST framework. So we can be able to use the Django REST framework in this app project. So that is taken care of. We can close this up now. Now we have that configured. The next thing I just want to do is to go into my models.py file and create a new and very simple model. I'm going to name the model student. So class, and then I'll just say student, and it's going to take from the models.model, and then I want this to just have two fields. Okay, there's a typo right here, so this should be a class. So now that's indented. Name equals to models.character field, and let's give it a max length of 100. And let's also say age but this time will be models.integer field. So we have these two here, and let's just say dev So we're just returning self.name. That's not too important. That's just to identify the name of each object that has been created. So let's just save this right now. Now that we have this saved, what I want us to do is to go ahead and migrate our database. First of yeah, let's migrate our database. So the first thing we need to do is just to come here and say Python. Make sure we have our P manage.py make migrations. So once we make migrations, it's going to save like the changes we made into that models of py file. So this basically all this code is just going to save it there. So that should take like a couple of seconds or so, and let's give that a second. And when it makes migrations, it has been made, but it comes into this file and then right here. Okay, now so there is a right in the migrations files 001 initials. So you see everything right there. That's all the it actually formats it in this particular way that Django is going to notice. So it converts this your model into this basically. So that's not too important to know about, but I just thought I should explain that. So I've made the migrations, and let's say Python manage.py migrate. So now when we migrate this, it's just gonna like push that into our database along with all the authentication, admin, and every single thing. So yeah, this is what we are looking for, API app. One more thing, let's create a super user. So Python manage.py create super user. So this is to create an admin user so we can access the admin interface. So let's just leave that blank. Yeah, and created successfully. So now we have that created successfully. Let's just run our server. So we are running our server, and as we are doing that, yeah, so that's done. Let's come here, and then we're going to go into admin.py file, and let's just basically import that. So say from .models import student. Let's import the student model and register it in the admin panel. Now the reason we are doing this is so that we can add some data to this student. So when we are collecting or trying to send a get response to this API, is actually going to give us some value. So let's register student, and let's just save that. So that's just to register student in the admin panel, nothing too complex. So let's just now go to our admin panel, and then I want us to add, so let's just open a new window. So that is going to open up, and then in our admin panel we're going to add some objects to this model that have been migrated. So this model has basically been saved in our project, and we should be able to add some data to it. So let's just go ahead and open this up, but actually we're going to open the admin panel, not just the direct page. So okay, it says site can be reached, but let's see. So let's go back and see what's up. So right here it gives us, actually gives us an error, and if we scroll up, let's see where the error is coming from. It says from Django RapidAPI settings. So somewhere admin site object as nodes have registered. So okay, so right here it's in this admin where we have register. It should be small letter, lower cases, not caps. So now that should refresh. Wait for that to, okay, can opt out of that and then just run that manage.py run server again, and that should run in a minute. And so once that is running up and running, like Let's give it a second. We're just gonna go to our admin panel login. That's good. So let's log in now. This should open. Okay, good. So admin login and okay, good. So we have this student model from our API app. So let's just quickly add one object. One object is fine. Right now, let's just say Tim, and we can give Tim an age of 27. So let's save that. And yeah, when that is saved, good. So that's all we need for now. So let's just basically quit this. So right now that we have this, let's just go ahead and serialize our data. And then once we serialize our data, we then create a URL or an endpoint basically for the API. So first of all, right here in urls.py, we need to add something in the path, in the URL patterns. So right here we have to say path API -auth, then we'll say slash comma include rest framework .url. So that's done for that. So since we have this done, we can basically just go ahead and close this. But actually, don't let us close this. Let's also specify the home. So let's say path. Let's give it a home, and then we can say views should go from the views. Okay, you know what, let's include. So let's include from this API app .urls. So let's make sure we have our comma here, and let's also import include. So we have this done. Good. Then we can quit this now, and right here let's just create an API app. Let's create a new file and name it urls.py. So since we have these urls.py, let's first of all go to serializers. So this serializer is just to serialize our data. Now it might sound so complex if you've not worked with the Django Rest Framework before, but it's very easy. What we just need to do is to just import serializers from Rest Framework. Good. Now say from .models, let's import student. So now we have this imported, and let's just have a class, and we can name it student serializer. So say serializers the serializer, a model serializer actually. Yeah. And let's have a meta class. Much typo in here. So model can be equals to student field. So this field is just to specify, like, in here, do we want all the fields to be part of the API or whatever is going to be in the API, or do we just want only this age field or model field? So we want to specify the two, or we can just say name, and we also want age. So this should be a normal bracket. Right here, let's just open that. So this is how the serializer file should look like. Very easy and straightforward. So now let's close this up, and then let's go into the views. So right here in the views now, what we just want to do is to create a simple view that gets all the objects in the serializer, serializes that data, and then send it as a response whenever this particular URL is queried. So let's go ahead and do that. Now we have render imported. Let's import API view. That's the first thing we need. From rest framework.views, import API view. And we also need to import a response so that we'll be able to send a response back. Good, so we have this. And now what we just want to import is the serializer, that's the student serializer, and then the model. So let's say from .serializer import student serializer, and then from .models import models. Now import student. So we have that imported. Good. Now let's say class, and we can just say like first view, just as a whack name, but let's leave it. So it's inheriting from the API view. And now we can create a class with a get method, and we just say self request then we'll say arguments is also known as args, and then one more thing is keyword argument, so 2 asterisk this time. And then let's have a query set. So let's just get all the objects. So student.objects.all. Okay, yeah. Serializer. Let's quit this. We don't need that. Should be equals to student serializer. Reset many equals true. So what this is doing is, okay, don't know why this keep coming up, but we're basically creating a serializer variable which is inheriting from the student serializer right here, and it's taking in this query set, which is all the objects in this student model, and many is equals true because we want to get not just only one response. So after that we can just return, now using the response to the serializer.data. So this is basically what we need. Since we have this now, we can just come into our URLs, and right here we can create like a view for this test view. So what we want to do is right here. Okay, so let's come back to these URLs here. Let's just take this because we will need this. Let's take all this from here basically, and then we don't need to include, we remove that, we remove all of these. So for the home view or the home URL, that should be our main endpoint and stuff. So let's just have something like views, but we need to import views. So from dot import views, let's just have views dot first view, but since it's a class we need to use the dot as view. So that's because this is a class right here, and since we have that dot as view, let's just give it a name. Let's say like first. I think that's okay. So let's save this. So since we have all of this now, let's just go ahead and we have our file running. So let's run that again. So when we have our project running, we just go ahead and test this API and make sure that everything is working fine. So let's give that a second. Okay, so it says no module rest framework. Let's scroll up and see where that error is coming from. So we can easily get this. So if we go into URLs right here, no, not this URL, this URL. So the error is just to put an underscore here. So REST framework is not with an hyphen, it's with an underscore. So let's save that and make sure that that is working, and let's make sure we didn't make that mistake here. Let's come back. Everything is working fine. And then right here, let's just go to our home page. Let's see. So we should see the response of the data. Good. As you can see, we just basically get a response of this particular data. That's what we need. So if we go ahead to the admin and then let's add one more, and let's say Tom this time, and let's say Tom is 16. Let's save. Now let's go back to our home page, which is our only endpoint. Now we see 16 and we see Tom twice because I clicked on the button twice. So if I come here, you see that I have that Tom twice. That's because I clicked on the submit button twice. So we can just go ahead and delete this. Yeah, I'm sure. And then now everything should be fine. So good. So now that we have this, our simple API created, first of all, before we go into like hosting it on Heroku, let's just create one more endpoint and let that just be, so let's say second view. So we want it to do exactly the same thing. So because we don't have any other model, we can actually use our users model or group model, but we don't want to do that for now. Just a very simple API. So what we're just going to do now, since we have this second view, we're just going to create another endpoint. So I'm just going to show you when we're later putting it on RapidAPI. So in the URLs, so let's just have like, say, second endpoint, and then views dot second view dot as view, and let's name this second. So that should also work. And if we go to slash second endpoint, we should also see the same thing because we're doing basically the same thing. So it's not running. Let's see what's up. So it gives us an error because we just didn't add a comma right here. Save that, make sure that's running, reload. Good. And then this should also give us the same thing. Yeah, good. So now we have this. Let's just go ahead and host it on Heroku. So now let's just go ahead and deploy this simple Django API onto Heroku. And this is fairly simple. It's just like deploying a normal Django project to Heroku. So the first thing I want to do is to come into my command prompt. Let me exit out of the server real quick. And I want to make sure I have two Python libraries installed, which are Gunicorn or Gunicorn and Django Heroku. So I'll say pip install Gunicorn and also Django Heroku. So this is just to make sure I have these two installed. But I have this installed already, so it should give me requirement already satisfied, but I'm not going to wait for that. Let's just continue with what we're doing. And right here, the first thing I want to do is to create a new file in the root directory of this project, and I'll name it runtime.txt. So this file is just going to contain the Python version that I want to use. So let me just say Python, and then let me check the version used. So as you see, it says requirement already satisfied, but let me check the version I have currently. So I have 3.7.4, but I'm not going to go for that simply because Heroku pops up an error with lower version of Python. So in here, I'm just going to put the Python version which I want. I'll say 3.8.1. Then I'm going to save it. So after doing this, I can quit that right now. And then in the root directory again, I'm going to create another file and I'm going to name it procfile. But this time around, this proc file doesn't have a file extension just like runtime.txt. So it's just only one line that's going to be here. We'll say web. That's when we use the G unicorn. So G unicorn, yeah. And then the name of the project, which is Django Rapid API. So Django Rapid API, and then we just say .wsgi. We use a colon, application, 2 hyphens log hyphen file space log space hyphen. So this is just the line of code that goes in here. So web g unicorn project.wsgi colon application, then we'll leave a space and then we'll write this. So we have that saved now. So before we continue, let's come into runtime.txt. Let's change this to 3.9.1 to the latest version, because Heroku, sometimes when we use like a lower version, it actually gives us this stack error, Heroku 18 stack error that you just don't want to see. So let's change this to this, and now let's just freeze our requirements. So for this, we'll come here and say pip freeze greater than sign requirement.txt. So this pip freeze requirement.txt is basically going to generate a requirement file, and that is going to have the libraries and frameworks of everything that we use in this our project. So when we are deploying it to Heroku will know what to install. So now that we have that, let's now go straight into the settings.py file. So we'll come here inside the settings.py. This is just going to be quick. We're just going to import Django Heroku, and then we're going to import DJ database URL. So now that we have these two imported, since we are using a database in our project, we have to come down here. Let's just change this. So from this default is not going to be dictionary, it's just going to be DJ database URL .config. So this config basically is just gonna take care of the database for us. And then now we're gonna go to the bottom of the file, and right here we're just gonna say Django underscore Heroku dot settings. Then we open a bracket and say local, then S, and then we also add another bracket in there. So that's what we need to do, and we just come up here, the allowed host, we're going to add an asterisk to allow all hosts. Then we can save this. So now that we have this saved, we can close this file, and then we can come into our command prompt now, and let's just do Heroku login. So Heroku. So we're basically logging into Heroku from our command prompt. So what this is going to do is that it's going to automatically open Heroku on your default browser, and it's going to open up a page for you to log in. And then once you click login on that page, right here in your terminal, you're going to be logged in already. So as you can see, it's running already. It's just telling me to upgrade the package of Heroku that I have. So it says press any key to open browser. It's going to open on my default browser, which I think is Microsoft. Okay, it is actually Chrome. So let's just log that in. Let's hit the login button. Now I have been logged in. So if I come back into my command prompt, you see that it tells me that I am already logged in. Now what I just want to do is to create a new app, and I'll say Heroku create the name of the app, which is, let me just say Django Rapid API. So let me put hyphens there just to make it more readable. So it's gonna create a new app named Django Rapid API. Actually, the name might have been taken, but let's see. If it hasn't been taken, that would be fantastic, but I'm pretty sure it might have been taken. Okay, it hasn't been taken, so that's good. So Django Rapid API.herokuapp.com, And then now let's just use git. Let's see the status. First of all, let's copy this. We are going to need it later. Just copy it. So there's no repository. Now let's just initialize a new repository. Very good. So now if we say git status again, we see what it wants to add that is untracked. So we'll say git remote -v. Okay, then git remote add this, yes, with, okay. So we're basically adding this repo that Git automatically created, but we are supposed to add it with Heroku. So we're supposed to say git remote add Heroku, then this. Okay, good. So git remote add Heroku, and then we can use the v. So now we see fetch and push, and let's check the status. Okay, same. So now before we do the final commit and push, let's first create a new add-on for our database. So we use Postgres. So say Heroku add-ons, create Heroku -Postgres QL, then colon RapidAPI. So now we're just gonna hit enter, and we want it to create a new add-on named RapidAPI. So it said couldn't find. Okay, so supposed to leave a space. So unexpected argument RapidAPI. Okay, so the problem is that we are meant to add an hyphen right here. So RapidAPI with an hyphen. Okay, so now created. So it has created a new Postgres database for us. And since we have a new Postgres database, we can just say git add. And add everything for us. And git commit -m the first time. And after this, we're just gonna push. So just say now git push Heroku master and hit enter. So now this is basically just gonna push this our code base into the Heroku app that we created. So it usually takes a while, so I'm just gonna speed this up or maybe skip it. So as you can see now, it has successfully deployed, and it says it's deployed to Heroku on this particular link. So let's come here now and just basically test that link. Let's hit enter and see. So now what it just tells us is that it gives us a programming error. So first of all, this application has been hosted successfully, but this programming error is because it doesn't see any model named student that is in the API app basically. So because this is like a new project that we just hosted the code base, we need to run migrations, migrate, create new objects and stuff. But this time around, we are running migrations online on the server, not just on our local computer. So this is also very easy. We just like the way we do Python manage.py make migrations. But the difference is just that we need to add Heroku run. So this is just gonna run it on Heroku on the server that has been hosted, not just the one on our computer. So now this is gonna make migrations. So as you can see, it says running Python manage.py make migrations on Django RapidAPI. So that's one that's been deployed. So let's also give that a couple of seconds. So it says no changes detected. Okay, good. Then let's just migrate if that's the case. So now we're going to be able to migrate to our database that has been created on Heroku. So let's see. Let's give it a second. Also, it should basically good. So it has migrated all this data right there. Now if we go back here and hit refresh, we shouldn't be getting this error again. So good. You can see now that on this our server we have this API that has been generated, but obviously there's nothing being returned. So let's just quickly fix that also. So first of all, let's create a super user. Heroku run python manage.py create super user. So we are creating a super user so we can log in online and just add some data to our database that is available. So let's allow it to run. That should only take a couple of seconds. So let's do that quickly. Leave that blank. Bypass. Good. So super user created successfully. Now we can go to /admin on this particular site. I can just log in with the admin, and that should log in. Good. So now we have that logged in, and let's just close this up. So as you can see that we don't have any students, so let's just add 2 or 3 students basically. So team 27, save and add another one, Tom 16, save again and add another, and let's just say something like Jim 19. So now we have 3 objects basically, Jim, Tom and Tim. So now if we come back here, good, now you can see that we're getting all those values, all those data. And if we go to slash, actually forgotten the name that we named it, I think we named it second endpoint. So we're basically getting the same thing because that's what we did in our code base. So this is working perfectly now. All the main things that we want to happen is what is happening. So we were able to create our APIs on our local host normally. Then from there, we went to hosting it on Heroku. Now we have like a URL online for this, our particular API. And now everything is working fine. But before we go further, we're going to test this, our API, using an online testing tool. So we're going to use what we call Paul. So I'm just going to say Paul. Let's open a new tab and say paw.app. So basically this paw.app is an API testing tool for testing your project. So I just created this. Can open this up, and it's very easy for you to test your APIs. You just input your API link right there, and it's just gonna send in a response. So let's just test first of all from the main URL without the endpoint. So I was testing this fast API that I created earlier, but now we can test this and hit send. So now in the JSON tree, see what it gives us. 2 items, team, it gives us Tom, it gives us Jim. So if we have it in like a JSON text, so you can see that it's basically returning those values now that we have it hosted online. If we also do it from the endpoint, so we can say, let's just come back here, copy that, and in here, okay, so what we just want to do to add an endpoint, second endpoint, and we hit send. So it gives us the same data. So basically that's what this our API does. So to this point we have been able to host our API online. Now let's just go ahead and put this our API on RapidAPI. So now let's put our API on RapidAPI. So to this point we've created a simple Django API using the Django Rest Framework, and we deployed it onto Heroku. So now we have the link to that API. Using this, we can put it on RapidAPI. RapidAPI is a platform which has a lot of APIs which you can easily use or integrate into your application. So let's say you want to use your API to send an email. This is send grid here that you can use to do that. Twilio SMS, they have basically anything you're looking for. Google Translate, open weather map. So it would be a very great thing to add your own API to the collection right here. And it's also very easy to sign up. You just go to rapidapi.com and then you can sign up for a free account. So once you sign up and you've logged in, just come into my APIs, and then we are just going to create a new API. So let's wait for this page to load. When this page loads, you see a button that says create new API or add new API at the left corner. So let's see. So right here, we just add a name. Let's just say first one, something like that. Is let me say test. So test API. This is just for testing. And let's select the category and just say data, UI, and then add API. So this is gonna create a new API. By default, it's gonna be private. So I'm gonna show you how you can make it public. The short description is just for testing. I created this API just for a tutorial. The website, we can just add this. This is not really compulsory. Where you see the asterisk is where the required information are compulsory. The upload image, we're going to skip that. It's not really compulsory. And website, let's just add that website. So we don't want the terms of use. We've already added data as a category. Let's hit save. So API has been updated. Now let's move to the next step. Add some endpoint. So if you followed along in this tutorial, you know that we built two endpoints. That's the base URL and then another endpoint called second endpoint. So let's create an endpoint. And first of all, let's name it home, and this will return some data when requested using a get method. So now we're not going to add any external doc URL of this, but let's just add a slash. So this is just for the base URL, and we don't need any of these. We don't need a query. Let's just save this. So we have the home, and let's create one more, and let's say second. So this is the second endpoint, just the same as the home. So basically, and now this is slash second endpoint. So let's just confirm this right here. Okay, good, that is it. And then everything the same, and just hit save. So now we have two endpoints right here, and let's go to add base URL. So what this base URL is like the main URL for this your API. So if this is your main URL, then basically the endpoint is slash second or something. So Heroku will know where to host all your endpoints on, or where to get them from basically. So let's hit configure and add the base URL. So that's the base URL right there, and we just hit save. So that's the base URL added. And now let's just make our API public by just hitting private, and let's make it public by switching that button. Good. So now that it's public, everything has been ticked. We can just cancel this like this and click view in hub. So now you can easily view it from here since it's public. So let's just wait for this to load. It's going to take a few seconds, and it's going to load everything we can do, so we can easily test our API directly from here. So good. So as you can see, so this is the second endpoint. Let's test it, and then good. So as you can see, the results, it brings out all the data we have in our database right here. So let me first go to /admin. It brings out exactly the same thing right here. So it gets everything successfully. Let's go to /admin now and test something out. So right here, you can see that is what we have right here that it basically brings out. So let me add one more, and then we'll send a query and see if it will update. So it's time, and let's just say 21, and let's save it. Good. So now, since the home and the second page are doing the same thing, let's just test the endpoint. Good. So if you scroll down now, you see now that we have a new data here named time. So this is how we can basically build a very basic API. We built it using Django. In Django, using the Django Rest Framework, we deployed it to Heroku, and now when we just add any data from this our site here, it automatically reflects in that API, and anyone can easily access this data because we've given them the permission to using our API. And Rapid API is a very good place for others to easily find your API. So, and that is going to be all for this video. Basically, I really hope you enjoyed it because I had fun building this and showing you how to do all of this. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.